And now I'd like to introduce a colleague of mine, actually, Athena Hutchins. Athena is the executive director for NITEC. Athena is in the Buffalo region. Athena will be sharing her own best practices and how you see and can share what Buffalo is doing when it comes to staffing.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, next slide. So just to give a little background on what NITEC is. So NITEC stands for the Niagara International Transportation Technology Coalition. So it was a coalition that was formed almost 30 years ago through a federal mobility grant, but really what the basis of it is to pull together the agencies in this binational region so we can work together and coordinate the management of operations. So how we're structured is we have 5 policy members, 9 general members, and 30 affiliate members, which actually that's increased over the years. That's where we look to add additional members to our coalition. Really, it's the transportation agencies, it's the public safety, the border enforcement. Because we are a binational region, there are border crossings. There are 3 major bridge crossings in this region, and they're owned and operated by 2 different entities. And then we work closely with U.S. Customs and Canadian Customs due to the unique nature of our region. We are the only binational coalition of its kind between U.S. and Canada, but again, we work closely between the 2 countries. Next slide. So what does NITEC do? So there's a lot we do in this region, but really it's about the multi-agency collaboration. So we work very closely with so many different entities to make sure traffic moves smoothly throughout our region. We are the New York State Department of Transportation's Traffic Operations Center for this region, which is Region 5 in New York. There's not a separate operation center for them, but we are their operation center. But we also do so many other things for other agencies throughout this region, providing traveler information, a lot of border management. During the summer months, we get very busy with a lot of traffic across the border in the region. So there's a lot of coordination that happens, emergency and incident management, a lot of construction coordination, anything really that's happening on the roadways within this region. We're really working closely with all the different agencies, and that including weather events and special event planning. So weather events, I know we're going to have a snow event here in this region starting later today, tomorrow. So a lot of coordination, making sure traffic's moving smoothly throughout this region. Next slide. So we run a traffic operations center 24/7 for the region. We're kind of that information clearinghouse. We share information amongst all the various agencies, and then we standardize operations. So there's various ITS equipment that the agencies have deployed throughout the region over the years. They all come back into our traffic operations center, and we operate those on their behalf. So really, we standardize messaging. So if you're on one agency's roadway versus another, it's seamless. The messaging that we put out to the traveling public is the same. Most people don't realize you're on different entities' roadways. And then we work closely with all the different agencies to develop traffic management plans, whether it's construction, weather events, or special events in our region. Next slide. So to talk about some of the staffing practices that we've done over the years. So in 2007, we hired a consultant to help us develop a strategic plan. And part of that strategic plan was to look at our staffing. So that report developed a staffing plan for us, programmed out. And then over the years, it was difficult to stick with some of those staffing projections just based on funding over those years. So we really, when we were doing an update to our strategic plan 10 years later in 2017, we took a look at some of that staffing just briefly and really recognized that we did not, we weren't able to follow through with a lot of those staffing projections just based on primarily funding of NITEC over the years. So what we did was in 2023, and we finished it in 2024, was we really felt we needed to take a hard look at our staffing. Let's do a staffing assessment, take a look at what was said in 2007, again in 2017, but really take the next level. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more, is some of the outcomes from that staffing assessment that we just completed. We finalized that report in February of this year. And some of what stemmed from that was, it's great, we have this staffing assessment that was done and it programmed out staffing for the next several years for us. But the space, we're really confined by the space that we have here. So we then undertook, working very closely with our local MPO, was a space needs analysis, taking into account that staffing that was identified. And now we're starting to take a harder look at the space and then coming up with the next steps for the space that we would need to basically have that staffing. Next slide. So here, when we were formed in 1995, a lot of the staff initially, when the center was formed, was New York State DOT employees. They were staffing it, we didn't have a lot of cameras at that time, when things got added as the years go. In 2003, they hired the first executive director to NITEC and then started to transition those staff. So the staff basically were on loan from New York State DOT. They went back to DOT, and then really all the staff became new NITEC staff. So in 2004, we're all considered NITEC employees. Some of the staff that was hired prior to 2003, transitioned into NITEC employees. Some of those were not DOT employees, and some of them are still here today. So you can see the staffing projections. We kind of have two departments here at NITEC kind of broken down. We have our operations center staff, and then we have our engineering, administrative, kind of IT staff, kind of the two departments. So you can see the green line is what is actual staff over the years, and then you could see what was recommended in the 2007 strategic plan in the purple, and then the red is now the staffing that was identified in our last staffing assessment. So in the 2007, you see a pretty aggressive hiring of staff, which we were not able to meet due to budget constraints. So, but now really taking a hard look at that and all the different things that we do, services, we really need to start programming and making sure we have the funding to meet those staffing needs. So next slide. So, we've really expanded on our roles and responsibilities over the years. When we were first formed, it was with 14 member agencies that we were really working with. Now we're up to 44. So there are additional services and functions that we are doing for other entities and agencies that have grown over the years. So, we've added some additional committees. We have a structure here at NITEC where we have various committees that meet, that pull together the agencies and work through, different initiatives, different projects, different issues. And some of the committees that were added came in after our 2007 strategic plan. One of those committees was our border crossing committee, the need to really focus and pull together those border entities to work through initiatives. So again, we've added additional committees through the years and just expanded on those services. ITS equipment has been added by the different agencies over the years. We've got over 300 pieces of different equipment that we operate here in the region. And again, more of those to come. So there's additional projects that are looking to come online by the different agencies. So we have to support those, integrate those into the systems here. And really then some of that is the data that we collect that has increased, and we report out and make that information available to the agency. So again, we've grown over the years and we continue to keep growing. Next. And some of those things, we've gone after various grant opportunities. And one of the things we've done is we've had one of the first round ATC MTD grants. What that meant was that was a new system that was deployed here at NITEC. It's called an all-road system. It's separate from an advanced traffic management system. It's we have two systems now. They do different functions, but again, the rollout of that system went live in June. Just a lot more capabilities, a lot more integration of other agencies' systems into one platform. But what that does is allows us to have more things that we're monitoring and taking a look at, and more work on our operations folks in addition to on our system staff to make sure there's, another system they've got to monitor and maintain. And then also, we're trying to keep in line with some of the state and federal cybersecurity guidelines that have been coming out. And as equipment changes, just trying to keep up on that over the years. And again, just expanding on other ITS projects in the region, different projects that are going to be coming online, taking that into account. There's some additional needs from NITEC, both on the operations side and the system side. Next slide. So looking at some of the tools that we use. So when we developed the latest assessment plan that we worked on, we worked with a consultant that really took a look at all the various kind of frameworks that are out there, the different studies that have been done, the different tools that are available. So they really took that and really dove into that, looking at, they did interviews with our staff here, and then also other things, but they really, some of the basis of what they did was based on the tools and strategies that are out there right now. Next slide. And some of the case studies. So that's something they did, is they did some case studies. They went out and interviewed and looked at some of these organizations, tried to look at, similar sized, operation centers, some that do some, functions like that we do here in this region, some cross-border components. So that's where they looked at some of these case studies to be comparable, to take a look at what they're doing staff-wise and how they operate, and seeing where it compares to what we do and how we function here in our region. Next slide. So again, looking at the staffing, looking at our jobs, our workload, some of the demand, and again, some of those observations. So they observed our operations center for 2 days. And of course, it was, a time when it really wasn't the 2 days that they were here observing wasn't very busy. There wasn't a lot of major events or traffic issues going on. Of course, that's how it works. Just like when you're doing a tour of an operations center, you kind of almost hope that something's happening on the roadway so you can show. But again, those observations were great. And then the interviews with the staff really were able to help them identify and capture some of the weak points that we have and where we need to add staff going forward, and just taking and learning from some of the staff in the different departments here at NITEC. Next slide. And again, some of the outcomes were, one of the things that we are very fortunate here, especially in our operations center, is the retention of staff is very high. I have employees that have been here almost 25 years. So even just within our operations center is the longevity of that staff, which then makes it easier, the workload. There's a lot of pride in our employees here. They really value what they do here and how we can help the traveling public, and then work with all the different agencies. So again, that piece was something that really resonated here, is I don't have this huge turnover of staff. So that is one thing that has helped us. But again, the 24/7 operations, we've done some things in the past where we've had part-time employees transition then to full-time, and then that has helped us spread out and meet some of the needs when we do have higher things happening. Like I said, the border crossing in our summer months are busy. Winter months, that's a whole nother different level of staffing depending on what our winter weather looks like here. But again, taking some of those outcomes into place. But again, some of the things that we're constrained on are our facility size and the ability to add more staff, and then where do we put them? So again, taking a look at that space analysis is something we needed to do in conjunction. And we did have a retirement recently, so there were some transition of some staff. And again, one of the things we've learned is just it takes at least 6 months to get a new operator trained here and up to speed. And then it took us 6 months to find a good qualified candidate. It is hard to find operations staff. So it's almost a year time period to get somebody hired and trained and fully up to speed. So again, that's something we have to take into account when we're looking to hire people. Next slide. And again, some of those current challenges, the next step is we are looking to hire more staff, and then again, get them trained, make sure we're, taking into account some of the ITS projects that are coming on board here in the next couple of years at NITEC. And again, adding those staff would require a larger facility. So that's something that's happened kind of in parallel for us. But now that we have this great plan that we just developed moving forward, and it sets us up to then make sure we're looking at the different funding mechanisms to make sure I can increase my funding to then, make sure I can have those staff going forward. So I know I've already programmed in my budget for starting April 1st of 2025 to 2026, the first step is adding another systems person to take into account some of these systems that we have, and then some of the cybersecurity needs. But again, I've already programmed that in my budget, just waiting on the budget to get approved. But again, going forward, starting to program out the future years as well is something I've already started to look at. And I'm working very closely with our local MPO, New York State DOT, to make sure I can keep that funding going that we need to in order to add the additional staff. Next slide. There's my contact information. And if anyone wants to see a copy of that report we just finished, you can reach out to me and we can share that report that was put together. So thank you.